Hello gamers and welcome to the first video of 2024, and in today's video I'm going to be ranking all the bosses in Donkey Kong Country Returns and Tropical Freeze. I will show all the mechanics and how the boss fights work, and remember that this tier list is entirely my opinion, and with that let's begin. In this tier list, let's look at all the tiers. The top of the list starts with the best boss, with all the best boss fights in both games. Then we move on to coolest boss, which is some really good boss fights that are amazing. Next up is Alright, which is just bosses, which aren't too bad, but not too good, in the middle. The next one is which is pretty bad, and one of the worst tiers of bosses which I barely enjoy. And the final tier on this list is Why Does This Even Exist? Which is the worst bosses of all of them, and I hate replaying them when I start a new save. Now, with that done, let's start with the tier list. First off, let's start with Donkey Kong Country Returns. The first boss in this list is Mugly, who is the World 1 boss. This boss starts with you having to wait for his spikes to disappear so you're able to jump on his back. But you have to dodge Mugly as he rushes towards you. But the more you progress through this boss fight, the harder it gets with him jumping and doing a mega jump, which can damage you if you get hit. This is an amazing first boss fight, but I'm gonna put it in alright tier since there is another boss fight coming later which is even better than this. The World 2 mini-boss Squidicus is an octopus that follows and antagonizes you in 2-5 and comes back in Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. This guy isn't too big of a boss, but he can attack you, like putting his tentacles in places where you can get hurt. And at the end, when you finish the level by barreling into the gold barrel before he destroys the barrel you're in, and killing you. And in Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, you beat Squidicus by dropping anchors on him and finishing and beating the level. So I think this boss fight is going to go in the meh. It could be better. Next up is the World 2 boss Govi Crew. You can start this fight by jumping on their heads, then rolling up after doing it. To them all, they all form together and try to attack you. You have to wait for them to lift their arms before you roll into them and jump on all three of them. But except for that, there's not much else going on, so I'm gonna rank it as meh, and in front of Squidicus. The next boss is the World 3 boss Stu. This boss starts with you having to stand on these blocks and try to dodge the bombs Stu throws at you. But you are able to throw the bombs back at him, slowly breaking the pot that Stu is on. But he also throws bombs that break the blocks, making them lower and making it harder to hit him. And an enemy that follows you and hurts you, and the only way to kill the enemy is to wait for it to blow up. This boss is really creative, so I'm going to place it in the cooler bosses tier. The next boss is the mini-boss Squeakly, appears in the level 4-5 Crowded Cavern. The boss appears during the level, but the only times he tries to attack you is when he breaks through the floor and roof, and tries to kill you. And at the end, when he shoots lasers at you, and at the very end of the level, he shoots a massive laser, knocking Squeakly out since he appears again in Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze as an Easter egg in the final world where he has frozen. This mini boss is very basic and not that fun to play, so I'm gonna put him in the tier. Next up is the World 4 boss Mole Miner Max. You start this boss fight by getting on these carts connected to a train with the boss, but first you have to kill all of the moles, and after that, the carts start falling off except one, and you're on to the next phase. You have to do this 3 times, and it changes by getting darker or steeper. But with the final phase, you're on the train and the carts, and you have to hit Mole Miner Max 3 times, and you can finish this boss and the train. Mole Miner Max is a fun and challenging boss fight, but it can feel a little bit repetitive, so I'm going to put it in the alright ranking, and in front of the Mugly boss fight. The next boss is World 5's Mango Ruby. This boss is way more different than the rest of these bosses, where you have to climb onto multiple different platforms, where you have to punch the switches, and once all of the switches have been pressed, you are able to attack the boss. Before pressing the switches, however, the boss is electrified. But once you beat Mango Ruby, it feels like an award. and it is a challenging and creative boss. I'm going to put it in the cooler bosses tiers and in front of all the other bosses. Next up is the World 6 boss Fugly, and this was the boss I was mentioning earlier in World 1. This is the harder version of Mugly. The boss has the same attacks as Mugly, but harder and more attacks, like he can breathe fire, makes rocks fall from the sky, he can do a mega jump leading to him being able to attack you on either side, and you can also attack him in new ways, like when he hits the wall leading to Fugly to fall on his side, making him vulnerable, and you can attack him. Also, after each phase, Fugly breaks the floor, leading you lower and lower into the arena. I love this boss, and I think this is the harder and better boss compared to Mugly, so I'm going to put Fugly in the cooler bosses tier and in front of every other boss. For World 7's boss is Colonel Pluck. This boss starts with a giant robot suit, where he slowly steps side to side on the course, and you have to wait for him to step to cross to the other side. After a while, he'll fly up and stomp the ground, then fly up, and you have to run into the middle and grab the chains and punch the chain. And after doing that a few more times, the robot breaks, and Colonel flies up and throws enemies at you. After a while, the chicken will fly down, and you can attack and finish the boss fight. Another thing about this boss is that it is really challenging but fun, so I'll rank it as alright tier, and in front of everyone. And now for the final boss, World 8's Tiki Tong Terror. And before the boss even starts, you have to do a difficult jetpack area, which is very hard, but one of the best jetpack areas in the game. After you enter the arena, you have to dodge a lot of different attacks with Tiki's hands, like when he claps his hands and you have to jump across before he hurts you, or when he uses his hands to try and squash you. But once he does that, you can jump on them and hurt him. Once both his hands are gone, Tiki uses his head, and a lot of new attacks, like where he shoots fire from his mouth, and some enemies, or when he flies down and you have to duck or get attacked and he slams his head on the floor, and fire flies to the floor to try and damage you. And when he does slam his head on the ground, you can jump on it to beat the boss battle. One problem I have is I feel like this boss battle can be way too easy sometimes, but still this is a really cool boss, and I'm going to place it in the best bosses tier. Now let's move on to the Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze bosses. First up, World 1's Pompy the Presumptuous. This is the first boss of the game, and it starts with Pompy sliding into the arena. You just have to jump on his back to damage him. But after that, he jumps into water and throws fish, big fish, and spikes at you. And you have to dodge them until they jump back into the ocean. Pompy also brings penguins when sliding in, and you have to jump on them as well. Other than that, it's really simple, not that creative, and not that good. So I'm going to place it in the meh tier. Next up is the World 2 boss, Scow the Startling. The boss starts with Scow shooting his feathers at you and throwing rocks with spikes at you. And then he throws enemies at you, which you have to use as projectiles when Scow lowers down and flies towards you. And once it goes into phase 2, where you go into a barrel, leading you to go higher into the sky. And in phase 2, Scow uses his wings to make the player move back. You have to try and dodge the enemies flying towards you, and you have to hit him with another projectile. Also, in phase 2 and 3, one of the side arenas, there are barrels, so if you don't have the enemy to throw at the boss, you can use the barrels to dodge Scow. And he also throws feathers upwards, so you can use the barrels as well. In the final phase, you're really high up in the air, and Scow uses enemies with spikes to come in from the background. So you have to move to where they are not there. And after a while, one of the birds you can use to throw at the boss. Scow also uses his feathers and throws them all in one bunch to make it harder to escape. And in the final attack, he is making a big egg which you have to dodge because enemies will fly out. And after a while, Scow will come in, and you can jump on his head to finish the level. This boss fight was so detailed and so fun and creative. This is one of the best bosses in the game, so I will rank it the best bosses tier. The next boss is the World 3 boss, Baboon the Boisterous. The first phase starts with you, baboons, either swinging their hammers and trying to get you, or they swing down and you have to jump on them. Just before the phase ends, two of them will roll into balls and you have to try and dodge them. But eventually, they roll upside down and you can jump on one of them. And phase 2 begins with only two baboons remaining. The phase begins with the two baboons climbing onto the wall so you can't attack them, and they throw these spiky bombs at you, which you can't touch or be near when it explodes. After a bit, one of the baboons throws a bomb without spikes. That's when you can pick it up and throw it at one of them. The second attack in this phase is them jumping on the floor and jumping, and after a while they trip and you can jump on their back to start the final phase. In the final phase, the final baboon spawns the phantoms of the other one and they swing together, where one of the phantoms throws bombs and the other has a hammer. So you have to dodge the bombs and all three of the baboons. But the phantom throwing the bombs will throw the bombs you can pick up and can throw them back at the group and you can finally beat the boss fight. This boss fight was really fun and challenging. I'm gonna rank it as the cooler bosses tier. The next one is World 4 boss, Fugu the Frightening. This boss is the most unique by being underwater and having no oxygen. Bubbles will spawn in during the fight, replenishing your oxygen meter. You start this boss by him blowing you in as he grows bigger or blows out where he gets smaller and pushes you towards the stage. Then he will rotate around and you have to hit the white spot on his back to damage him. After that, he grows big and blows these green fish at you, which you can spin back into Fugu, where all his spikes disappear and you can attack him. The final attack he uses in the final phase, where Fugu makes himself massive and rolls around the stage up or down, following you until he uses the same attack from phase 1 and you can finish the boss. This boss is really unique but kind of repetitive because phase 2 was just a harder version of phase 1 and phase 3 only has one new attack, so I'm just going to place this in the alright tier. The next boss is World 5 Bassmaster, the Unbreakable. One thing to say before we get to the boss battle is that the floor is ice, making your moves more slippery. His first attack is him trying to hit you with his spiked hammer. Just wait for him to try and hit you with his hammer and dodge it, then jump on top of the hammer and his head. After that, he gets small blocks of ice and kicks them towards you. Jump over them, and in one of the ice blocks contains the bomb. Break it and throw it at Bassmaster. The final attack for this phase is the boss will drop from the sky and onto the floor. If you're on the ground while he jumps to the ground, you'll be stunned for a second, so you have to time your jumps properly. Next up for phase 2, it'll begin with Bassmaster kicking 3 different ice block pillars. You have to jump on top of one of them and he becomes stunned and you're able to jump on him. After that, the boss will do the jump attack again, but this time when he lands on the floor, 2 ice trails will go around the arena. For phase 3, the boss begins by making large ice pillars, which you have to jump over until you find another bomb breaking the ice and hit him again. The final new attack Bassmaster does is he summons ice blocks and hit them with the hammer, turning the ice into a giant ice bullet projectile. This boss was really fun to play and I loved all of the attacks, so I placed this in the cooler bosses tier and ahead of the baboons. Now for the final boss for today's video, World 6 Lord Frederick the Snowman King. You start the boss by being in the same volcano as the last game. The boss blows into his horn and multiple balls fall out from the sky. When they hit the floor, enemies come out. You have to hit one and throw it forwards towards the Snowman King. After hitting him, he jumps towards us and runs to the player. You have to hit him on the back. After that, the boss will jump on the platform you are on and you have to roll away. After he jumps on the platform, they'll sink into the lava for a short amount of time. After a while, the Snowman King will jump back into his arena and he'll blow on his horn, summoning snow dragons to fly into the platforms, turning them into ice platforms. You have to try and dodge the dragons, otherwise you will get hurt. After that, you have to do the same thing as phase 1. For the start of the final phase, the Snowman King will send all the platforms into the sky and fall down into the lava. You have to time your jump so you don't fall into the lava and die instantly. After the platform rises again, all the ice is gone, and the boss will summon the ice dragons and the enemies again, but after that he'll jump back onto the arena and pull out his horn and blow out the ice dragons. And you either have to crouch or jump depending on the position of the boss is in. After that, you can jump on his back and finally finish this boss battle. This boss battle was really hard and challenging, and I loved beating this on hard mode. I rate this the best bosses tier and ahead of Scowl. Here is a look at both of the tier lists. And with that, this is the end of the video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and also make sure to check out the second channel, TGR Plays, as the next video I'll be uploading will be on that channel. Goodbye. I want to add that I launched a new website where you can see behind the scenes, exclusive videos, and being able to see videos before they release on YouTube. There'll be a link to the bio and my YouTube channel. Anyways, thank you and goodbye.